this episode, I'm going to walk you through debugging an RJS problem, so an Ajax problem. So here we have our show product page again, and it allows us to add reviews through Ajax. This is what we built in the last episode. And so we can add a little review here. And then click Add Review. And then this is what every Rails developer doesn't want to see, is where nothing happens. Just nothing responds. You just get this blank stare from the browser. And that means there was some kind of problem with the Ajax and RJS in the background, and you need to debug that problem. And that can be difficult to do sometimes, because this doesn't have any error message or anything to go on. So first of all is to you got to kind of trace the steps and find out where exactly in the process the Ajax call is breaking. So the first thing to do is to view the source of the HTML page that you're on currently, and to make sure that the prototype and Scriptaculous files are being included. And here they are, so they're being included properly. And down here, it's a good idea to check the JavaScript, what happens when the JavaScript call is made. In this case, it makes a new Ajax request, and so this looks pretty normal. This is make an Ajax request and check the URL for that request. Make sure that is correct. And this is correct. And so this all looks pretty normal to me, and it looks correct. So then you have to kind of go one step further and check the actual request and see what's going on, seeing if a request is made to the browser. And you can look in the development log to see that. So let's go to the development log here. And here's the development log. And you can see we got this nasty stack trace error message here. And so this is telling us that there was a problem in the request. So here we go to this is our reviews controller create action. And then we get this undefined method error. So the development log is really handy in debugging RJS because it allows us to see the request in the background and see if the request was successful or not. And so here you can see that in this case there was an error message in the Ruby side, the server side of the code, and I have this undefined method pluralized. And so I got to take a look at the code and see if I can solve this problem. And so here's our create request, and I don't have pluralized in here. I have it in my RJS file, which is right here, create.rjs. And here I'm doing pluralized, and as it turns out, this method is actually called pluralize without the D at the end. And so this is a fairly simple debugging case, but it's a good idea to always check the development log if you have a problem with RJS. So let's try submitting this again, and it works. So this time it works great. Let's take a look at our development log and see how it's supposed to look. And in this case, we don't get any error message. It says 200 OK, and our response is great. Now sometimes the problem isn't on the server side. Sometimes it's actually in the JavaScript which the server sends back. So sometimes you might get the development log, it might look like this, but the JavaScript still isn't working. And in those instances, a very good tool to use is called Firebug, and that works in the Firefox browser. So here's the Firefox browser, and go to getfirebug.com, and you can just install the Firebug plugin into Firefox. And what's really cool about this, well, it's great for debugging CSS, HTML, pretty much anything related to web development on the client side. And so let's just go to our local host and go to that same page and just try submitting a request here. Add a review. And so this is working. But if it's not working, you can click this little check arrow down here. And see, this tells you that in the console area, it tells you that there was a post request that was sent. And this is what actually was sent when we click the button. And if we click it, it'll allow us to look at the headers, the actual post that was sent, and the response from the server. And so this is really useful because it tells you exactly what JavaScript was sent back from the server. And if you could check the headers are always a good place to check too, because you need to make sure that the headers are correct with the, as a mention of JavaScript in the request and in the response has the content type of JavaScript here. And so that's a really good way to see if there's any obvious errors in the JavaScript itself. And also, just to get familiar with another problem that's you often see is, let's say an element ID is missing. So let me just delete this to mimic an error message here. Let's say add review, and sometimes you get this dialog that pops up. It says type error, null value. And a lot of times what the problem is that the prototype library is trying to find an element with a certain ID, and it can't find it. In this case, it was searching for a form named review form, and it couldn't find it. And you get this little error message mention of what's actually in the JavaScript that was sent back. So here you can see that, well, actually I think it's cut off. Oh yeah, here. The review form. It's kind of hard to see here, but this is actually what's causing the problem. Just to make sure, just check all of your element IDs and make sure that all of the elements that the RJS relies on is visible in your HTML source. So just view the source and see if the form has the ID correctly. And right now it doesn't because I deleted it. But that's just something to be aware of if you do get that error message. It's oftentimes an ID is missing or something. So that's a few ways to debug your RJS. If you have a comment about this episode, please go to RailsCasts.com and you can add your comment there. You can also email me at feedback@railscast.com. Thanks for watching.